Welcome to the Gigs Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Sanz, founder and CEO of Gigs, the professional career platform for the live event industry. On this podcast, we are talking to the very best in the touring and live event industry to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and the unreal moments of life on the road and lessons learned while gigging. Today, I can't believe I get to introduce a true legend in the touring world, Marty Hom. With over 40 years of experience, Marty has been the driving force behind some of the biggest tours and most iconic artists on the planet. The Rolling Stones, Beyonce, Fleetwood Mac, Barbra Streisand, Stevie Nicks. He's held roles as a tour manager, director, and producer, guiding artists like Shakira, Alicia Keys, Janet Jackson, Van Halen, Olivia Rodrigo, Lionel Richie. Known for his expertise and his remarkable leadership style, Marty creates a sense of family on tour. As one of the few Asian Americans in the industry when he began, Marty helped pave the way for greater diversity in tour management. Marty, welcome to the Gigs Podcast.
I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted already just listening to that list of artists.
We have a lot to get into, and I'm so excited you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Happy to be here, Nick.
So I want to start with last year at the conference in Lidditz that you created with other legends, Jake Berry, Charlie Hernandez, and Stuart Ross. You told a story about a high-pressure situation when you were tour managing Beyonce, that you had to make a big, very expensive decision. Can you please share that story here?
Oh, that was crazy. You know, before I started working with Beyonce in 2016, I never had to do a stadium evacuation in my entire career.
Oh gosh.
On the Formation tour, I think we had to do 3 or 4 stadium evacuations.
Why?
Because of weather.
Oh,
it's all weather related. It's lightning and stuff like that. So now we're on the Renaissance tour and we're Washington, D.C. And again, we had a rain delay. We were supposed to start the show at 9 o'clock. I think we were waiting for the lightning to pass over. I think they said, the lightning will be gone by 10:30. So we had to evacuate the stadium. But the biggest concern was how, if we started late, the show was going to end late. And we were informed that the public transportation ended at 12 midnight.
Oh, no.
And so like in D.C., in that particular venue, at I think it's, JFK Stadium, I think it is. They have most of the people, or a lot of the people, the fans and the people who work there, take public transportation.
Right, it's DC, yeah.
And so they said, well, the only other option is to extend the public transportation by an hour. And the cost for that would be $150,000 to do that. Oh my gosh. And like, I'm sitting in a control room, and it's crazy because the police are in there, the fire department's in there, the emergency service in there, the city manager's in there, and we're all trying to manage this weather and manage the flow, the public transportation.
And are all the people already in the stadium at this point?
Yes.
The fans?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So really, I mean, we really had no choice. I think, Beyonce's concern was for her fans and making sure they get home safely, and so for her it was a no-brainer to, extend the public transportation to 1 a.m. to make sure that everyone got home safely.
Wow.
But it was nuts. It was crazy.
That's a big, I mean, how long did you have to make that decision?
Like 10 minutes. It was, so you kind of run it up the flagpole to everyone and we kind of talk about it, but it was a no-brainer.
Wow. And then did the show end? Did it all work as it should have?
It did. Did. We got people out in time and people got home safely. Yeah. So
you're making this massive decision for probably one of the most iconic artists of all time, largest tours ever. You started with Bill Withers in 1985. I want to go back there because did you ever think starting that, that's what you would ultimately be doing?
Never in my wildest imagination. Never. I mean, back when I started with Bill, and it was the first tour that I ever tour managed, I didn't understand, I don't think, the historic significance of working for Bill Withers. I mean, now, 40 years later, I look at it and say, I worked with Bill Withers. I mean, what an incredible man and an incredible songwriter. And I mean, that was just kind of the start for me. It if you told me back then that I'd end up where I am today, I would have never believed it.
So what got you in? What was that open door that got you in with Bill?
You know, it was funny. I worked part-time for a company called Concerts West, which is kind of an affiliate of AEG now.
Got it.
And Bill's wife, Marcia, was an accountant for Concerts West. And she asked if I'd consider going out. And you know, I let her know that I'd never really tour managed before. And she hired me.
What? Were you were an accountant to start then?
I was not really. I was kind of a promoter rep.
Got it.
So, yeah.
How old were you?
Oh, Jesus. Back then, here we go. What, that was 40. I was 28 or 29.
Wow.
Yeah.
Promoter rep. She gives you the chance to tour manage. So your first experience on the road isn't in merch or hospitality or even with any of the vendors. It is tour managing.
That's right. And, well, it was kind of a combination of I started as a production manager, really.
Yeah.
I started as a promoter rep.
Got it.
And then I became a production manager, and then eventually I started tour managing. Yeah. So in the early '80s, I was a production manager.
What did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy production?
I kind of loved it. I kind of loved it, and you know, look, I didn't want to stay in production management, but I saw the natural progression into tour managing. Yeah.
What is that? Can you talk about the progression?
You know, look, the production manager is more of the technical side of, you know, getting a show in and getting a show out, you know, and mostly back then I worked with smaller artists. I worked with a lot of jazz artists back then, which, you know, is the kind of music that I really, really love, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like a pig in shit. Like, I was like, oh, they're paying me $500 a week to go out and do this, you know? It was like awesome.
You're
right?
paying me? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then you kind of just gradually, you know, learn more and understand more. And then I really love the logistics part of tour managing. I love the financial part of tour managing. And so that kind of attracted me as well.
The logistics, also people management.
People management, that's,
I guess you're still, with the PM job, you're still managing your people there.
That's right.
But the tour, your tour management, would you say the biggest difference is you're also interacting with the artist now and trying to do what's best for them? Or what do you think is the biggest, just for anyone who's not in the industry, you know, the biggest difference between PM and TM?
I think it really depends on every tour, but I think, you know, both positions are crucial to the success of any tour. So I think, you know, the production manager and the tour manager both have to have interaction in a relationship with the artist. I think they also have to have relationships with the artist management. And I think it's important that both understand the financial, especially now with the size and the cost of these tours, understand both aspects of not just the technical aspect, but also the financial aspect of running a tour.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you do Bill, and you fall in love with it. Then you go with some other jazz artists. What's the next progression for you?
I think the next couple big steps for me is in 1987, I got asked to tour manage the band Chicago.
Oh.
And they were managed by a gentleman named Howard Kaufman. And Howard Kaufman was a huge mentor to me. And you know, I did Chicago for him. I think I did Chicago maybe for 3 years, from like 87 to 90 or 91. So that was a big step for me. Howard at that time managed some of the biggest artists, you know, in the world. He managed Jimmy Buffett. He managed, back then he probably managed Steely Dan and Boss Gags and a bunch of other huge artists. And so, you know, working for him, I learned so much. And then I think the next big step after Chicago was in 1990 and 91, and I got asked to tour manage Paula Abdul.
Oh, by one of our friends, Scott Welch, yeah?
Yes. So Scott worked for the management company. So, you know, Paula was my first, you know, introduction to the pop. You know, the pop. And it's funny, Nick, it's funny how you get stereotyped in the business, because I did Paula Abdul, and then you know, throughout my career, I've done a lot of female artists. And then you get kind of stereotyped into that, like, oh, he does a lot of pop artists and he does a lot of female artists. And that's how I got, I think, the references, the referrals that I got from those gigs.
Yeah, because then, Paula Abdul, Barbra Streisand, women that you have to, it takes a very certain type of man to be around that woman, I'm sure.
What it takes is you have to understand the hair and makeup aspect of working with a female artist.
Yes.
Which is crucial.
It's everything. It's all they care about.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. But that's fascinating. So I wanted to go back to Howard as a mentor of yours.
Yes.
When you were first starting up. What were some of his attributes that you really looked up to and wanted to emulate?
Howard Kaufman was a guy who never wanted to be more famous than the artist he represented. And to me, I saw that, and it really had a lasting impression on me. Because nowadays it's changed maybe a little bit. And so what it taught me, Nick, it taught me to always remain humble, always to, stay in your place, be humble, appreciate the job. Because Howard was, that's what Howard was. He wanted to be a behind the scenes kind of like, let's get the job done, but I don't need to be famous.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, you are behind the scenes. You're not you're not the star.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see a shift in that.
I've seen, the downfall of many of my colleagues. They go down this path, they start moving up in the industry, and then they all of a sudden think they're the artist.
Oof.
And you always have to kind of remember that you work for the artist, always. They're maybe very friendly, but they're not your friend. They're your boss.
You're not flying private because you deserve to fly private. You're managing the transportation once you get to the place and manage the whole situation.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, it's interesting where ego goes backstage too. So how did you transition? And I promise this is not intended to come off in any rude way, but you go from tour managing with payphones and without Mastercard, without any kind of the new technology that we have today. What is that transition like for you?
You know what? It's not rude. It's actually a reality.
It's reality.
It's hilarious to think that we manage these big tours with a payphone, with a, back then there were no computers, so I used to carry a binder. And I used to, like before every tour, I'd get my binder out and I'd, have little indexes, and, dividers.
Yes.
And it would say like, Houston, March 1st, and Dallas, March 2nd, and San Antonio, March 5th. And I would have little tabs, right? And in those tabs, I would have all my advance forms, hotel advance forms, venue advance forms, ground transportation advance forms. I still probably have those somewhere if anyone wants to buy them.
Wow.
The forms. Anyway, and you used to just advance everything via a payphone at the gig or at a hotel.
Oh my
and you
gosh.
used to just go through the checklist and, there was none of the other stuff. Computers started coming into it, I want to say, in the late 80s or early 90s, people started having computers. They were nothing like we have now, right? But
So, I mean, concerts were not at the scale they are today, obviously. And I'm sure that's limited by, if you need to make a quick change. But what if there was a change on tour and you needed to get in touch with the venue or you needed to get in touch with crew member? Like, what did you do?
You basically would have to just kind of call, the hotel phone and hope people answered. It was crazy. It was crazy to even think that that's how we ran tours back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And kind of shoving new day sheets underneath the hotel door.
Yeah, I still did that up to recently. In fact, I do them on some tours now because artists like to see the physical day sheet printed and sitting on their, table in their hotel room.
What is the best piece of new tech or tool that you use now that you're like, I actually don't know how we got by without this? Besides a cell phone, you're not allowed to
really
say cell
computers, laptops.
Yeah,
really.
okay.
I mean, there's no question that's those have helped us do our jobs so much. Email.
True. Oh my gosh.
Email.
Email.
Now, look, I'm not a huge fan of texting. I have to do it because it's goes with the job.
Right.
I'm a believer. Sometimes you just got to pick up the phone and call people.
Truth.
Yeah.
For that, and kind of getting off topic, but with texting, with calls, did you ever have boundaries in this job, or were you just like, you're on call, if you're on this gig, this is your life?
You know, I think I've always been like the 24/7 guy. I never turn my phone off, ever.
Wow.
You know, that's funny you mentioned, because we had pagers back then too.
Yeah, so, okay.
You get a little pager. So I'm still kind of that way. I never turn my phone off. I answer the phone at all hours of the night, because you never know what the call's about. And if they're calling you in the middle of the night, it's got to be kind of important. So what I do have
just so everyone knows, you can call Marty at any time. He will pick up.
Yeah, I will.
Just kidding.
I will. I think what the boundaries are now is, I think people, for me at least, I've decided to have boundaries within my life. That you have to take time off. You know, you can't just, for me at this stage of my career, I just don't want to work 365 days a year and be a slave to that.
You had to, though, I'm sure, to get to where you are.
You know why? I think, and this is something for the younger people who are getting into business. I think the fear is always, what is your next gig? Yeah. What's your next gig? And I think it's the hardest part that I tell people, or people who want to get in the business. Like, I love the industry. It's a great job. It's one of the best jobs in the world. I think the hardest part is the next gig and how you go from gig to gig. And I think it's not for everyone. I think if you're the kind of person who can go out on tour and stash away some money, you know, because you don't really have to spend a lot of money on tour, right? If you can save your per diems, if you can save some of your paychecks and just stash it away and wait for the next gig, then you're going to make it. If you're the kind of person who needs a steady paycheck every week, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. For
when 2 months go by and you still haven't picked up the next thing.
That's right, yeah.
And then, you know, that's when people, I think, take gigs out of desperation, when they really might not be the best fit for that or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough. Did you ever have that moment of when you were first starting out of, oh my gosh, what is the next one? And when did it hit where you had to start turning down gigs?
Every day. When I first started, absolutely every day. There were days when I first started, I had $5 in my pocket. I told a person this story recently, and if I had to go park somewhere, I'd make sure I had enough money to park.
Wow.
You know.
Wow. Oh, for the gig.
No, if I was just going somewhere. If I was going somewhere and I needed to park my car and I had to pull in a parking lot and the parking cost more than $5 and I didn't have the $5 to pay for the parking, I had to maybe find a meter.
And that is dedication right there.
So you know, I think it's reality when you first start getting into any career, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, look, I'm the kind of guy, and all my friends will tell you that I never say no to anything. So for me, it's really difficult to turn down a job. And I think that's for a couple reasons. If they're calling me for a job, I'm honored just to be considered for that job. And I don't like to disappoint people, and I don't like to, you know, turn down people. And so if there's a way that I can make it work, I try to make it work. There are times when I can't because of other commitments. But I think, you know, it's important. You know, look, I'm still happy to get phone calls from people. Like, you know, doing Olivia's tour this past year was really quite an amazing experience for me.
And you just got back from Australia, Asia, right?
Yes. We did, yes.
I mean, that's the first thing that I thought of is you're running Beyonce's tour, the what was it called?
Renaissance. Yeah.
This whole past year and last year.
It was last year.
It was last year.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. But you came through Nashville. I worked a VIP. It was last year. Oh my gosh. Everything's, anyways, sorry.
Yeah.
But then you hop right onto Olivia. I mean, it's like this quick, you would think you would need some time to just go, but you know, what is that recharge for you?
I'm finding that time now.
Okay.
I think so I just finished Olivia a couple weeks ago. We did Southeast Asia and we did Australia. And I got back, I want to say, on the 23rd of October. And I was supposed to start Shakira's tour on November 2nd. That was her first show date. So I would have had to go straight from, and this year's been nuts for me. So this year started for me with rehearsals with Olivia in Los Angeles in January. And I did her entire North American tour. And then I had to jump off to go do the Rolling Stones North American tour. And so I went straight from Olivia into the Stones. And I did all the Stones, and the Stones added an extra show. And I couldn't do that show because I was committed to starting Olivia's North America. So I left the Stones, finished the last show, flew home, and then started Olivia's tour the very next day, North American tour. So like, I didn't really have much of a break. I didn't have any kind of break. Yeah. And so like, I'm like dreading like the Shakira tour starting. And she postponed.
Oh my gosh.
She postponed her tour until next year. And so like, I was thrilled.
Yeah.
I know some of the fans weren't probably thrilled. I was thrilled that I'm going to now get 2 months off. So
okay, well, you're not saying you get off tour, sure, but then you go right into the other. But there's so much advance work that has to.
Yeah, so that happens that's happening at the same time.
As you're on the Rolling Stones, which no one's ever heard of. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, no.
So now you have 2 months. You get to enjoy the holidays and get through to next year.
100%.
Wow. What do you start with next year? Is it Shakira?
Next year, yes. We'll start with Shakira rehearsals in January, and then she starts her Latin America tour in February.
Oh, wow.
So.
Oh, you're seeing the entire globe.
Yeah.
And you're seeing what a crazy change in genre, too. Like the Beyonce fan versus the more high school, college Olivia Rodrigo fan versus the Rolling Stone fan.
Exactly.
And now South American. I mean, that's, wow, what an adventure. And actually, I think this would be a really interesting time to talk about your family and how do you manage that you've gotten to this point. Why would you ease up? You've gotten here. How do you manage that time with your family?
I think it's the most challenging thing. I think for those people who are getting into the business, I think they will, and the ones that have been in it for a long time will tell you the most challenging aspect of touring or a career in touring is really that family and how you try to balance your work and the family. And look, for me, it's been really, really hard. Like, I have 2 kids and, I've missed many birthdays and it's been difficult. It's probably one of the biggest sacrifices you make in one's life, and I think now things are changing a little bit. I think people are trying to find more balance in their lives. I wish I would have known that 40 years ago. I think also like tours are becoming more accepting of giving people on tour balance in their lives. So we know that you have birthdays and you have weddings and you have deaths in your family, and those are something, at least on my tours, like those are things you need to go to. Like it's important for you to attend those special events, high school graduations, if your kids are, and I think that tours need to be a little bit more understanding about letting people on those tours go home to do those things.
How do you find a quality sub to take over, or how do you trust, because every tour is different. Do you think that tours are becoming a little bit more standardized where someone could hop in, or is it still, do you think that's difficult?
I think it's still a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
I think, you try to cover the gig within if people are leaving.
Right.
And if not, as long as you have enough notice, if they know they're going to a wedding or a birthday or a graduation, as long as you have enough notice, you can accommodate, those folks to go back and do those things.
And then that's how you keep retention. I mean, that's how you keep people if they're happy in their job.
I agree 100%. I agree with you 100%.
What are other ways that, if you have any traditions on tour, because you tend to keep a lot of the same people when you go from tour to tour, because you build these amazing relationships with them. Do you have anything that you love to do that is a great bonding activity or just a way to keep everyone together?
Ultimately, I think people have to understand that it's all about the people. It's all about the people. Like I've said this for the entirety of my career, that buses are buses and trucks are trucks and lights are lights and speakers are just speakers. But if you don't have the people that are happy setting all those things up, then you really have nothing, right? And so, like Olivia's tour was really fun. We had, lots of parties or lots of outings, that we took folks to. We just had the end of tour party in Australia, and we had everyone showed up. It was really a lot of fun, and it was a blast. We had a couple magicians, and we had
That's my favorite.
Oh, we had we had these magicians who were incredible. Yes. We had a cartoonist, so people were able to get it. So I think you have to make it fun. I think you have to outings like like if the guys want to, or the people on the tour want to go to a baseball game or maybe a football game when we're out on tour, if they give me an advance notice, I'll always try to get tickets for them to go do those things as a group event, So I think it's important that you kind of do those things.
Can you give an estimate of like some percentage of, as tour manager, you are helping the artist and the finances and the crew, and what percent of your time would you recommend to other tour managers to pour into your crew?
Oh, I think it's all about the crew. So I would say, hey, look, you have to really understand the pulse of your crew.
Yeah.
You have to kind of understand where the heads are at, and like a lot of that, I rely on the production manager and the production coordinators to tell me, right?
Yes.
So I think, look, I think it's one of the hardest things to do on tour is to keep the morale. Mm. Like how do I'm going to tell you a story. It's interesting. Like on Beyonce's tour, we brought in mental health specialists. And what was funny is we get statistics. We don't know who they are, but we get statistics on what people talk about, right? Mm. And one of the things that was brought up a lot on that particular tour was how people felt underappreciated.
Oof.
Which is a good thing to know, because then you have to try to make them feel appreciated, right? So it's important, I think, that you get a pulse of the morale on the tour so that you can try to make it better or rectify it. And sometimes it's very difficult because, on that tour we had 500 people on that tour. So,
oh my gosh.
So you're not going to make all five. It's nearly impossible, but you can try. You can make efforts to try to make people feel appreciated.
That's so hard. And I can imagine that is the challenge right there.
It is challenging, yeah.
Because they're doing the job. It is often a thankless job because they are the behind the scenes people.
Yeah.
They're not getting the glory of it.
But we do it because we love it too,
absolutely.
know?
Yeah. Oh, that's too cool. I want to get into, actually, you mentioned working with a lot of the female artists and you kind of get pigeonholed into that. I want to talk more about that. What are the main differences? It's the hair and makeup. Is there anything different about the crew, versus like the Rolling Stones and male artists?
For me, I try to, the makeup of the tour is important to me based on what an artist wants. Mm. And I'm really proud to say this. On Olivia's tour, I think 49% of the people on tour were female.
Wow. That's unheard of.
Totally unheard of. And I think, this is something that, again, understanding what your artist wants and trying to make that happen for her is so important. And I think, and look, I'm not the only one, because there's a lot of people out there who do this. Like, it's really important for me that, you try to staff a tour like the world, mm-hmm. like the world isn't, like 98% male,
Right.
And so I think, I've always been a firm believer in having lots of females on tour, and not just in your standard wardrobe or production coordinator role, but, video directors or house engineers or, I think it's important. I think the industry is starting to change. I think it's been slow, but I think it's progressively starting to change. And people are, because again, on last year's at the conference last year, I sat up on stage with 4 incredible women who just happened to be tour managers. And you know, like I maybe said on that discussion, it was like 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to have this panel because 20 years ago, there weren't 4 great female tour managers. And so I think, you know, our industry is starting to change, and I think their eyes are starting to open, and I think it's a very positive change.
I have that written down to bring up. Last year, seeing that, and it wasn't female tour managers. It wasn't, look at these girl bosses. It was, this is the tour managers panel, and you were moderating, and it was so, because I think a lot of times, maybe women or any underrepresented group, especially in this industry, it's like, you know, having that girl boss term, or, you know, oh, well, we're going to highlight these people because they're women. You're highlighting great tour managers who happen to be women.
I only brought it up at the end.
I know, it was so cool. I loved it.
I only brought it up in the end.
But it's changing because of people like you and the way that you're going about it, and making the industry more representative of the people who want to be in it. It's not just the people who have the connections already. Yeah. So thank you for doing that.
I mean, you know, it's just not me. I think, you know, it was really incredible this year because, like Olivia had Chapel Roan open up for her first leg.
Oh, yeah.
And Chapel's got a great tour manager, Sophia Eris. You know, and I saw, and Noah Khan came on as a special guest at Madison Square Garden. He sang a song with her, and Noah had a tour manager that was just happened to be female. Yeah. And I, you know, look, I smile when I see that, right? Because I see, again, our industry is making change, and it's for the good. It's for the positive.
Yes. And so you started out as one of the only Asian Americans in this industry. You told a story.
I still am.
Still, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Let's know. Yeah, let's hear about that. And, you know, what were your feelings of stepping into this industry? Yeah, I would love to hear about that.
You know, that's a good question, Nick. I think, you know, when I started getting into the industry, like, there were no Asian Americans in the industry. And look, I'm a 3rd generation Chinese American, right? Yeah. And in my household, you know, like, when I told my parents I wanted to be in the music business, they were like, no chance. You got no shot. You know, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to run the family business. And the family business was a grocery. My dad and his two brothers and my grandfather owned a small chain of grocery stores in Sacramento. And so I started working in a grocery store when I was 15 years old. Actually, when I was 5 years old, but officially started getting paid when I was 15.
Look at that work ethic, man.
Yeah. And look, I think that helped with my work ethic, actually. And then, you know, at 28, I decided, and I was old. 28's kind of old to get in the business. And I decided, look, I was, you know, saved enough money to sustain myself for a couple of years. And if I didn't make it, I could always go back to the grocery store business.
Right.
And so back then, there were no Asian Americans in the business. And, you know, look, I never really looked at it kind of like from that perspective. I always said, you know, I got into it because I was a fan. I'm still a fan. I still love music. I still love live music. And that was the reason I got into it. And so I think, look, if I can help open the door for other Asian Americans to get in the business, hey, I'll do anything I can to make that happen, you know?
That's amazing. Well, and you're doing it in other ways too, of really opening up just more diversity.
I think that, yeah, and I think the industry needs to be more diverse for sure. And again, just like women, that is slowly starting to change as well, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's progressing.
Yeah.
Into a really positive thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amazing. So I want to talk about your team building when you do get a great team, and how do you keep them for so long, and what makes someone great that you want to employ? You know, what are you looking for in them?
You know, if I could give any advice to young people getting into the business, you know, I always say this, you probably heard me say it, like, I would rather take somebody young who wants to be there, who has no knowledge whatsoever, but yet has a great work ethic and a great attitude. I'll take great work ethic and attitude over, somebody longevity and being grouchy every day.
Yes.
100%. Give me somebody who wants to be there, who's eager to learn. I'll take that person every day.
Yes. And there are those who have the experience and a great positive outlook.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the industry really hardens people.
No, it does.
Yeah.
For sure.
To start having that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Even for these large tours, is that something that you would be open to of having someone new?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
and the
about
larger
outlook.
tours, it's actually a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And it's easier because you need to employ more people.
Right.
Right? So you get to the 4th or 5th or 6th audio guy, and you get to the 7th or 8th or 9th lighting guy.
Yeah.
Those are opportunities for people because the bigger tours employ so many more people.
And then they have more support too.
Yeah.
I mean, how many production coordinators do you have?
It depends. On Beyonce, we had 3.
Okay.
And on Olivia, we just had 2.
Okay.
So every tour is a little bit different.
And they're managing different sets of the crew?
Yeah, so aspects of the tours. So, like production coordinators, one manages all the travel.
Got it.
The other one does more of the day-to-day logistics, call sheets, that kind of stuff. One manages the runners.
I mean, there are so many issues every single day. You also have to be such a great problem solver. Are there any problems that you run into that just really grind your gears? Or is everything kind of like, it's going to get solved, we're going to figure it out? Or is there anything that's like,
No, I think now, nothing gets me really riled up anymore.
Okay.
It's because you can always solve it.
Yeah.
And I think, look, I think for my position, for the production manager, it's kind of our thing to remain calm during any kind of crisis or panic, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to reflect on everybody else. Like, this is calm. This is under control. We have this covered.
Right. Because that's from the top down.
Yeah.
Do you remember an experience where you made a big mistake that you were like, I'm never going to do that again, but you had to learn it the hard way?
Yeah. I hate to admit this. God, what tour? This was probably in 1997 when I first started working for Fleetwood Mac.
Wow.
And we were well into the leg, and we got onto our big charter. We had this big 737, and we landed in Houston. And I'm looking around for the ground transportation. The pilot landed the plane at the wrong airport in Houston.
Oh my gosh.
And so we had to take off and go to the right airport. It was probably a $6,000 mistake. And so I learned that I should maybe check with the pilot through every private flight what airport and what FBO he's landing at.
Wow. Wow. And that is a great example.
Because it was hilarious. Because either I could keep the plane on the ground, but then the ground transportation would take 45 minutes to get to us, or I could take off for this other airport and be there in 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, because it was...
Wow. Clearly, I know nothing about private flight. One day. So you advocate for healthcare access for touring professionals.
I do. It's something me and a few guys, again, in our boredom, got together during COVID and figured, and it really started with a guy named Tom Ross. Tom Ross used to be the head music agent at CAA.
Okay.
And then he retired. And, Tom wrote to me and said, look, I have a really good friend who's a tour manager. He's not doing well health-wise. How come there's no health care for people who tour? In this billion-dollar industry, right? Mm-hmm. And so me and Stuart Ross and Spencer Churchill and a few other guys got together to try to figure out how we could provide health care for people who work in the touring industry. And it was very challenging. I mean, we kind of worked really hard, and we, hired some people or asked some people to help us consult. It's really challenging. It's challenging because, people in the touring industry are spread out throughout the world. Yeah. They're spread out throughout the United States, which is still challenging. And to try to get an umbrella policy for all these kind of individual independent contractors
Yeah.
was hard. We looked into it. Look, I don't want to say it's never going to happen because I think someone along the way is going to figure out how to do it. It's something that's definitely needed, without a doubt. If everyone who works in the touring industries could get some type of universal health care, that it'd be amazing.
Yes. It's interesting too, where, you're the freelancer, you don't know when your next gig is going to be, and you don't have any security.
Yeah.
You don't even have workers' comp, but then there's certain, production companies that won't hire you unless you do have workers' comp. And
That's
so
right.
then what do you spend your money on to get the next gig? I think we're definitely going to see it in our lifetime.
I hope we do. I think it's something that's really, really needed for people to take care of themselves.
Right. Should that fall onto an artist? If they're employing you, is that something that you could see it in a trend?
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why I don't think so. Because the artist will always provide workers' comp. So if you work for the artist, if you're ever injured or you get injured, obviously that is taken care of. I think tours last too short in general, right?
Yeah.
So I think they last too short for an artist to go find healthcare to provide it for them for, tours last a couple weeks, so they last, 6 months and then they're over. Mm-hmm. I think that was one of the big reasons that during COVID, we lost a lot of people. Like we had a huge attrition of people who just got out of the business. And that's because they found they could go work for FedEx or, Amazon or Home
Real
Depot
estate.
or whatever.
And everyone did real estate after that.
And they could get health care and stay at home and not have to tour.
We lost 25%.
Yeah.
Or maybe even more.
Yeah.
And with that, you lost that connection to that person that was going to get you that next connection to that job.
Yeah.
And I think that's why gigs made the most sense to start after the pandemic.
It was
People
brilliant.
were so desperate.
Gigs was brilliant.
Well, we're gonna clip that and use that forever. Thank you. But I don't think it would have worked as well pre COVID. I think everyone is. But if we have this database of tens of thousands of touring professionals that are all freelance, how can we help that? So I think I've been thinking a lot about, anyways, that issue. But
let's mention Annabelle. How much we love Annabelle.
We love Annabelle so much. She has changed. With Annabelle, she started just as like a part-time social media help, and then really blew me away. Full-time social media. Now producing this podcast.
Do you have any touring experience or no?
Not really, but I really want some.
Oh yeah.
All right. No. I was just wondering if, what attracted you to this.
Yes,
this whole thing.
That's what I moved here with the goal of getting into.
Moved from where?
Athens, Georgia.
Oh, awesome.
Yep, Athens, Georgia, and my dream is to do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful what you wish for.
But she will crush, and that's where I'm like, all of this was hopefully, thank God she's with us, and I will be so sad once she gets on her tour, but hopefully we'll still have her part-time or something.
We're going to introduce you to a lot of people, Annabelle.
Oh yeah. Don't take her from me. But no, I want her to get on a tour. So this is great. I want to get into then, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing tour managers and production managers specifically?
Another good question. I think for me, I think the biggest challenge moving forward is, there's no human resources department on tour. Like I am human resources.
Yeah.
The production manager is human resources, and that's it. Well, we're human resources, and I think, the biggest challenge that we have is really how to just manage people. Really, how to manage people's expectations, how to manage sometimes their entitlement. I think as we see moving forward, like, I don't know if people are willing to work hard in this business, and so that becomes a little bit challenging. And so, I mentioned earlier about work ethic, right? I think work ethics is so important. But does work ethic stop after you've worked your 40 hours a week? because that
Right.
doesn't really happen on tour, right?
Right.
You know, you're working a lot more than 40 hours a week. And so I think moving forward, I think we have to figure out how to manage those people, you know? What are their expectations?
Expectations, because there's a beautiful movement in the States, at least, where boundaries are a thing and you can hang up you can have your weekend, but touring isn't going to change for that.
No,
And people need to know that.
absolutely.
And I think that's, I wonder if that's why people start out I started catering, hospitality, merch, the hardest, grueling, physical. That's not an easy job to
Those are
kind
the
of
hardest jobs. You're absolutely right.
to wean them out, to say, this is hard.
Right.
Do you really want this? It's not cool. It's fun. It's the greatest job in the world, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's the people that get past there and get into the next phase.
They have a chance. Absolutely.
So you're looking for the work ethic, the spirit, the positivity.
Yeah.
What do you do with people who are bringing everyone down?
I think you have to go to them and they have to make a decision. And it's going to be a tough decision. And you have to ask them if this is really what they want,
Yeah.
if this is the business they want to be in. Because you're right. I mean, you're a family on the road. And one person who doesn't want to be there kind of might ruin it for everybody else. It's not like you get to go home after your day's work, right? You get on a bus with 10 or 11 other people. And so if you're negative, you carry that negativity with you everywhere. You don't get to go home and get a 12-hour break or a 15-hour break from that person and then come back to work the next day. You have to actually get on a bus with that person and go to the next city with that person.
You don't even get a meal away from them.
That's
you're
correct.
eating with them too.
That's correct.
You're
Yeah.
brushing your teeth in the morning with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, everyone who's on the road is so unique and so special to want that life. But
Yeah.
everyone's a little bit crazy. And so to manage all those personalities. So if you get to a point where you as HR, because you have, nothing else to do than HR, but do you get to a point where you're like, all right, this person isn't supposed to be here. We got to get rid of this cancer. What is that process like? Like, how easy is it for you to find someone new to replace, or is it kind of just easier to try to motivate them to stay?
I think the replacement part is easy.
Okay.
Like there's always people who want to get in the business, always.
Mm-hmm.
I think trying to motivate them, you can go through that process and have those discussions and see if the light bulb goes off and the realization goes off, like you're not going to have a job if you don't change. But sometimes it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you've been in this for 40 years now. I'm sure you have the most insane stories and experiences. Do you have any that really stand out as these moments of, this is why I do what I do. This is why I do what I do.
Oh, we don't have all day, but the one that I'm going to reiterate, one that I've shared with many, many people, and this happened maybe about 14 years ago. I was with Shakira, and we were doing a outdoor stadium in Hom area, and we had a sold out show. I think 60 or 70,000 people. And I get a phone call in the middle of the afternoon. And the call is, Marty, you should come down to the gig. We have a problem. And so the production manager at that time was Bill Leebody, who is a long time great production manager, did Coldplay, did many, many big artists. And so I jump in a cab, I go down to the venue. It's probably 2:00 in the afternoon. And the upstage left corner had buckled. The roof of the stage had buckled.
Oh my gosh.
When they were in the process of hanging the video wall.
Oh no.
And so they put, yellow caution tape around the stage. They evacuated everybody from the stage. And I remember sitting in a room, right after that with the guy who built the stage, the promoter, the guy who designed and engineered the stage. They're all sitting in there. There were 3 guys in there, there were probably 20 of us in the room. And I looked at, they're trying to convince me that the stage is perfectly safe. That no worries, you can still do a show, it's still safe. And then I asked them a question. I said, well, do you all have families? You have kids? And they all responded, yes, we have kids. And I said, well, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to bring your kids to the show tonight, and I want you to stand right next to me on the stage, on the side of the stage, because what you're asking me to do is put my family underneath that structure, your structure. So if you're telling me it's safe, you're going to bring your kids, and we're all going to stand there together. And there was silence.
Wow.
Nobody said a thing. And at that very moment, I canceled that show.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. And the silence tells you everything.
Silence said everything. Everything.
And then it also shows them, this is your family. I mean, these are the people that not just the star, but everyone else working this.
Yeah.
Wow. What an amazing perspective. And thank God you were working that show.
Well, I think any sensible person would have done the same thing I did, right?
Man.
Maybe not in that context,
Yeah.
but I think that people sometimes are so worried about the show must go on. Mm-hmm. The show must go on absolutely under the right kind of conditions. Like the show can't go on if it's dangerous.
Right.
Or if it's unsafe.
And it was already, is that a weight problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oof.
Yeah.
Have you had any other technical issues, kind of disasters, or been a part of any of those?
God, I'd have to think about that. That was the main one that came to mind, because that was pretty intense.
Very intense.
It's not easy to make a decision to cancel a show that has 60,000 people coming to it, right?
Right.
There's a burden on that, right?
Mm-hmm. A lot of logistics following.
Yeah.
But what's worse is people getting hurt, and then that being the tour. The press of the tour is
that's
getting hurt.
Press you don't want, right?
That's press you don't want. Yeah, sure. Wow. So you're also publicist, HR, tour manager, people manager, publicist.
Oh, there's really a publicist.
I'm just kidding. Looking out for that. Looking back, what are you most proud of in your career? It's a big question.
I've been asked the same question, and my answer is always the same. Like, Nick, my legend isn't Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks or the Rolling Stones or any of those great, incredible artists I work for. My legacy are the people that I've had an opportunity to work with, who have gone on to have their own careers, who have been able to support their families, have done something they love to do, have done something they're passionate about doing. Like, for our kids, what we hope for our own kids is that they find something they love to do, something they're passionate about doing, so that it's not a job, right? And for these folks that I've had the opportunity to work with, they've found their love and their passion, and I've enabled them to do something they love to do. And so that really, for me, is my legacy. Like when I'm finished, which is coming up, when I'm finished, like those people will continue to work and continue hopefully to educate and mentor more younger people coming up behind them. And so that's important to me. That's what it's all about to me.
It's true servant leadership.
Yeah.
That's tapping the next shoulder,
yeah,
building them up.
Absolutely.
And watching. Yeah. You see that the next generation of leaders are the people that you had mentored. And that's, I'm sure that's goosebumps right there.
I love it. I mean, it's, I'm so proud. I'm really so proud of them,
Wow.
Yeah.
I think this is a great time to finish with our rapid fire questions.
Oh God, here we go. Jesus. Let me put my fucking seatbelt on.
Here we go. And you don't have to answer anything that you don't want to answer, or that could get you in trouble. So easy, starting with just, what is your favorite city or venue to tour? And a show is there, you get excited.
I'll tell you my favorite country, and I just left it. I love touring Australia.
Oh,
I just love being in Australia. Have you been there?
No.
Let me tell you, it's so magnificent there. The people are so great. The country is so great. The food is great.
Yes.
I love touring over there. So.
I just heard someone that was on with Devin O'Hare, and she was just saying, "Why do I live in the States? It's too good over there. Why do I even tour?"
Oh, was Devin on your podcast?
No, not yet. One day we'll get her on here. But
Devin.
I just talked to her on the phone. She's coming tonight to Tour and Career
She
Workshop.
Is?
Yes.
Oh my God.
You'll get more of her. What is one tool or thing that you cannot tour without? Can't leave the house without one, I don't know if it's a thing in your toolkit or not laptop.
Okay. Patience.
Whoa, that's a tool. That's a tool.
Patience. You can't, like for my job, you can't leave the house without patience.
Wow. That's huge. I love that. What is your biggest pet peeve on the road?
Bad attitudes.
Yep. Mine is chewing with the mouth open. I can't be around those
bad
people.
attitudes.
But bad attitudes is way better. Do you have a favorite touring tradition? Something that you try to, some kind of tradition on a bus or in the production office, a certain way you set stuff up?
No.
You're just getting the job done.
Yeah.
What's your favorite after show food?
You know what? I don't eat after show food.
And that's how you stay healthy.
I stopped a long time ago. I mean, let me tell you, it's the hardest thing for me. On tour, there is food everywhere. Everywhere. Food at the venue. You can always eat at the hotel. There's food everywhere. and I have to tell you, I've had to really be careful because I gain weight when I'm on the road. And when I get home, I lose it right away.
Yeah.
So I stopped eating after show food many years ago because it was just a bad habit. You just go on, you eat dinner. You get on, like if you're home, you're not going to, go get a midnight snack at 11 p.m., right?
And it's not pizza and subs.
And it's usually crap, And so I learned to I don't order after show food. I don't eat it. I just try to stay away.
Wow. That is patience and resilience right there. That is wow.
Oh, it's hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Because especially when you are up till 3 a.m. working, you're like, oh, I deserve this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I already asked you this question. Let me think of if you want to answer, who has been your favorite artist to work for?
Oh, you know what? I've been really lucky. I've had really, all my artists are really, really great. And but I'll tell you, Lionel Richie, I'll tell you top 5. Lionel Richie for sure. Stevie Nicks, love Stevie Nicks. Olivia Rodrigo.
Wow.
One of the most incredible individuals I've had a chance to work with.
Wow.
For me, it was so refreshing to work with her on this tour. It was just, she was like a breath of life.
Wow.
And, to just see someone so young, 21,
wow,
go through her first major tour and yet so mature. And I told her this when we finished rapping on our last show, that, a tour always starts from the top. And it starts from the very top. And I told her, and I said, that her kindness and her compassion and her understanding, resonated throughout the whole tour.
Wow.
And to see someone, just do that at her age was remarkable.
And you have children. Are they older than her? Or are they younger than her?
One is older and one is younger.
Wow. So I'm sure she seemed almost like a daughter.
Oh, almost, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow. And then you have 2 left in the top 5.
Oh, let me think about that because it's hard. Love Paula Abdul. It was my first major tour. Look, I've had such an incredible career and I've worked with such great artists. It's really, even a top 5 is hard for me.
Yeah.
I mean, the Van Halens. Love myself, love me some Van Halens.
Wow.
Just an incredible, incredible family. Alex's book just came out. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but, just a really great family to be around.
And to close, what advice, I know we've already touched on a lot of this, but, closing advice that you would have for people who are in the industry? I know you've given some people wanting to join, the work ethic. What would you tell people who are in the industry?
What I would tell them is, Charlie Hernandez always says that, leave it better than you found it. And I would tell people that, for guys in our industry that have been here for a long, don't be stagnant. Be motivated, be inspired to make it better, to do better things, to understand who you're touring with, that, people need mental health, awareness, to maybe take a harder look at sustainability, making your tours a little bit more sustainable. So what I would tell them is just don't go in and do your job. You know, try to be motivated and inspire others to make it better.
Marty Hom, thank you for
go.
being on the Gigs podcast. My goodness. And I'll see you as the keynote speaker tonight at
please.
the Touring Career Workshop.
You don't have to go. I won't be offended if you don't
We
show
will be
up.
bringing signs and cheering.
Oh, don't, please.